Welcome into the Source Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by Spencer Smith, not Sean Smith, but Spencer, you have been around the block a time or two from Synergy Sportsman, and the feedback has been very good. So we're like, hey, screw it. Let's just keep this ball rolling. Fan feedback has been awesome. So we're very excited to bring you back. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, not too much, man. I'm doing well, just hanging in there, getting closer and closer to basketball season. Recovering from the Ole Miss loss this weekend, which was a bummer. But you know what? We got next week. We'll bounce back. But no, all things considered, doing well.
It looks like my...
Oh, there we go. All right. My intro for some reason, but I think we're good to go. Yeah, very in the same boat. Just need to kind of hit reset. It was an 0-2 weekend for me on the football side of things, and it was very weird because I watched the same exact one with UK, whatever the hell that was, and then the New England Patriots did the exact same thing on Sunday. It was like I had just the worst version of deja vu imaginable. So I'm glad to be able to talk basketball and just kind of get my mind away from just the sport that is typically my favorite. But unfortunately, right now, we're just not on very good speaking terms. So doing some good things with basketball and massive news that we get to talk about. And I'm really excited to get your take on it because you were a part of the John Calipari administration briefly, and spent a lot of time in the Joe Kraft Center, and very soon the Joe Kraft Center will be no more, at least as it relates to men's basketball. The announcement of a brand new practice facility in the works coming over the last 24 hours. Kind of came out of the blue, but also comes alongside the entertainment district that Mitch Barnhart has been talking about. Kind of the like what we see with the Milwaukee Bucks and Titletown with the Green Bay Packers. Some of these other pro franchises, both NFL and NBA, have them, and that's kind of the vibe that they're wanting on campus. And this new practice facility will be a part of it, Spencer. But the timing is interesting because we are just 2022, I believe, the summer of 2022 was when we got in our little civil war of basketball versus football school. And, John Calipari saying that we're the gold standard, we deserve X. Mitch Barnhart saying, hey, that's not an appropriate conversation. Stoops temper tantrum on social media. It was a whole lot. And then that was the root cause of that was a practice gym, and now here we are 1 year into the Mark Pope era, and guess what? He gets a new practice gym. So your initial thoughts once the news came that a practice gym was on the horizon for the Cats?
Yeah, it's time. It's absolutely time. It's probably been time for several years now. I say what you want about Coach Cal. There's thoughts all around. He was right. We needed a new facility. There's several dozen programs that have passed us in the facility game in the last 10, 15 years. It's kind of, as you know, has become an arms race, football, basketball. When I was at Oklahoma, they were building a world-class rowing facility. It was like a multi-million-dollar rowing facility for the rowing team. Yeah, it's gotten out of hand. I agree. But it's also at the same time, we can't say we're Kentucky, we are the best, we expect the best, and then we don't put our best foot forward and say, you know what, we need the best then in terms of facilities and upgrades and that type of stuff as well. So I fully did agree with Cal at the time that we needed a new facility. I still believe that. So this news today is huge. And honestly, thinking ahead and doing it as part of a larger district. And I've heard rumors or maybe reports of working in some medical stuff into it and tying it into football on the south end of campus and stuff. I think that's great. The more that we can kind of make it part of the kind of overall campus community, that's an excellent way to do it. So I'm a big fan of this.
Yeah, I think it's more of a... Yeah, I don't think it's a direct, I don't think Mitch Barnhart's trying to be, do it specifically because Coach Cal, to throw a jab at Cal or, anything like that. I think this was just, if you go back to Mitch's quotes even during that and immediately afterward, it was never about flat out telling Cal no. It was never saying, hey, you want something, but, because I don't like you, you're not getting it. That wasn't ever his point. He was saying, hey, Cal, just because you're Cal and you're a Hall of Famer doesn't mean that you can just cut the line of these other projects that we have, as we're seeing with Historic Memorial Coliseum and the $85 million put toward that. And, just go across campus. Mitch Barnhart is never short-sighted whenever it comes to all the Olympic sports. All 22 scholarship sports on campus. He is all about being fair and obviously prioritizing the money makers and adding real investment, additional investment to the money makers, obviously, but in a fair way where nobody feels that they're totally left out. I was at the Champions Blue meeting today, and we're talking about the tennis facilities. We're talking, it is a campus where it is a priority to make everything a priority. So it was more of a timing and logistics thing of, hey, we will hear you out. We're comfortable having that conversation when the time comes, but it's just not going to happen right now. Cal leaves, and it just kind of works down the docket that it now is the time, and it's a funny coincidence, I think, but it's fair. It is something that I think is necessary, and I think you think of it from what we're seeing with the historic Memorial Coliseum and the money that they've invested in that. It also allows the women's program to kind of take that building over and kind of make that a premier thing as well. So we'll get men's basketball will continue to be the juggernaut of the sport, but also you get Kenny Brooks, who's a Final Four coach in his own right, to kind of have his own recruiting powerhouse. With a brand new renovated $85 million facility, taking over the Joe Kraft Center and all that practice space, the volleyball program as well. It'll be a women's complex on top of it. So it just makes a lot of sense how they're going to do that. Being at that meeting today and talking to Mitch Barnhart, Spencer, it definitely sounds like more of a concept of a plan, if you will, than an actual plan. They're starting the kind of just the planning stages of, okay, hey, we're going to get the renderings, we're going to meet with these contractors, and they're going to kind of put their heads together and come up with a vision for this, and how much is it going to cost, what can we afford, anything. So he didn't want to put the cart before the horse with any of this, but he said, hey, if this works out the way that we want it to, this could really resemble a title town where you're getting the entertainment, indoor, outdoor entertainment, the restaurants, the bars, the outdoor kind of living space. It's just there's so much potential here, but it does just kind of feel, a year away from being a year away before we can kind of actually talk about this tangibly, if you will.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think it was a slap in the face I don't think the timing, it was a slap in the face. I don't think it was he's gone, so let's do it now. I think timing is everything with these things. And I think when you do it, you have to kind of project for the future. You can't just say, okay, what do we need right now? It's got to be, what are we going to need 15, 20 years from now, so that we're not in a situation again where we need to just redo this thing every 10 years. And I think that's fair. I think the timing's got to be right. I totally agree with you. We have a national championship caliber volleyball team. We have a national championship caliber coaching staff and talent and roster and stuff for the women's team. It's totally right for them to be able to take over that building. I think that's perfect. Basketball can also utilize a lot of football stuff. There's a lot of crossover there in terms of like what can be utilized. When I was at Oklahoma, we built the Blake Griffin Center, which is like a brand new, like at the time, state of the art kind of weight room. And they had things for like vertical, and they had plyometric stuff, and they had hot tubs and cold tubs that were world class. And football would come over all the time and use that stuff. And that's great. Football has a beautiful facility, and they've got a lot of really, really cool stuff in there that maybe the basketball program doesn't. So it's good to be able to kind of cross that bridge every now and then. And so having them close together kind of makes a lot of sense. I think we saw last summer they played pickup football on the Commonwealth Stadium field. So maybe they could do that more often. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think the timing will be really good. So I'm excited for this. I agree with you. It's probably like a step away from being a step away, which is fine. But it sounds like everybody's aligned, everybody's lockstep. They're going to raise the money. I have no doubt that it will happen. It's probably just a matter of when. But this was a big step today. And you're right, unexpected news. I wasn't expecting to hear about it today.
The UK healthcare kind of aspect, I want to get your thoughts on that. Being around and seeing kind of the sports science and how sports medicine, rather, seeing kind of all of that from behind the scenes at various programs. So the multi use space is what they're calling it, the facility. It's going to include a UK healthcare sports medicine ambulatory space and sports related research space, consistent with, the Green Bay Packers, the Titletown Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, sports adjacent, right next door to Lambeau Field. Atlanta Hawks have a 90,000 square foot facility, the Emory Sports Medicine Complex. You have the rehab and the training and the all the medical things that you would need on top of the normal training that you would get in the practice facilities on top of that. So what is the value in kind of having all of that at arm's reach, if you will, for Mark Pope or just the basketball program in general?
Yeah, 100%. They're like technology from a recovery standpoint. Like, don't even think about, like, as a fan, you think, like, when you hear that stuff, you immediately think, oh my gosh, if somebody breaks a bone or if there's a torn ACL or whatever, we've got it right there. The bigger part of the medical aspect is recovery, just on a day-to-day basis, where it's like, guys, they're 18, 19, whatever. Guys get worn down over the course of time in the season. Like, their joints take a lot of kind of tension and a lot of pressure and stuff throughout the year. Recovery is the biggest part of this sports medicine thing that oftentimes gets overlooked. There's a lot of, like, just incredible things from a recovery standpoint that they have now. There's Normatec boots, which are like these kind of air suction boots that basically just kind of relieve all the tension and pressure out of your legs. And players will get in them for 20 or 30 minutes at a time, and they'll just be able to watch a TV show on their phone, but all the while they're recovering. There's world-class things like that. There's hot tubs and cold tubs, and there's pressurized tanks, and there's everything. So honestly, I think having all of that stuff right there from a recovery standpoint is probably the biggest thing, keeping guys fresh, keeping their legs, active. Guys with a sprained ankle or whatever, able to hop right into it. They're not having to take a golf cart halfway across campus in order to, like, go and get evaluated and then do their treatment there and go back and forth and stuff. It's just, when you talk about wanting to run a first-class athletic program, that's the kind of stuff that really, like, and you talk about preparing guys for the NBA, that's how NBA programs run it, right? Everything is in-house. So I think the recovery stuff is going to be big. And then, yeah, like when I was at Oklahoma, if a guy broke his nose, if we had something with a knee or something like that, same thing, we had to go across campus to the football facility, which didn't make the most sense. Having everything in one place is going to be big. Not again, and having it close to football and all that kind of stuff, and then tying in an entertainment district where it's not just, hey, we're not just investing this money for the teams and the product in the field or the court, but we're also investing it for the fans and giving you guys a first-class experience on game day. I think it's big. The medical stuff oftentimes gets overlooked, but there's a reason, to your point, that you see more and more pro, college, whatever, starting to tie that in together, because it's such a big part of the day. Our guys would spend just as much time in recovery every day than they spent actually on the court or in the weight room. It's become that big of a part of, like, being a college athlete.
And, just in terms, big picture, the spending money to make money with the new era of revenue sharing. They were talking today about all the things that they're kind of planning to have. The practice facility is going to be part of the, multi-purpose building that it has the UK healthcare and all those things, which is then going to be a part of the greater entertainment district that will include, and I quoted all of this, retail shops, restaurants, cafes, food trucks, outdoor and indoor entertainment venues, hotel lodging, academic student center services, collaborative spaces, public green space, and event gathering. Like, they're wanting this to be this, like, village of entertainment. And, in terms of the money, again, money is going to be the end all be all of this to decide how big and grand they can get with it. But there's kind of a range here where, yes, you have the Atlanta Hawks facility where it is just kind of a standalone, the 90,000 square foot, awesome for basketball, awesome for healthcare and all the other stuff we were talking about. But that's kind of the basis of it. But then you have the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are, their building is a part of a $3.5 billion project that's going to, it spans across 35 acres of riverfront in Cleveland with 2,000 residential units, 850,000 square feet of office space, restaurants, retail, entertainment, all that stuff. So we kind of got that vibe talking to Mitch and hearing the Champions Blue meeting as well today, where it's like, hey, we're going to see how much money we got and what we can raise and where we're pulling the funds from. But we're going to shoot for the stars and just see if we can, get to the clouds. Like, I think they're going to try and probably find a happy medium. I think it's going to be maybe bigger and grander than what the Atlanta Hawks are doing. but maybe not $3.5 billion if I had to guess, somewhere in the middle. But man, for where we are at the University of Kentucky compared to the competition, I know Tennessee did something similar. Theirs is a pretty lucrative project, but you don't see it everywhere across college basketball. Kentucky is behind, but I feel like this is going to put them on a whole different level compared to the other, Dukes and North Carolinas and other blue bloods that we're competing with. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be the whole, because obviously, as most fans will remember, like we've shifted the athletic department now into like this LLC. So I think it's technically a nonprofit, if I remember correctly. But it's all going to be about structuring these things from a business sense, right? So when you see these facilities, $3.5 billion, I live in Tampa, and the Tampa Bay Lightning downtown have kind of a similar type of district going up and stuff. And it's all about like, how can this be as financially viable as possible? Because as financially viable as everything that we do, as financially viable as that can be, right? Ultimately, that's just going to pour right back into the franchise or back into the program. And then ultimately that's going to then enhance the product on the court. And I do firmly believe that. I'm a big believer of kids at that age, and I think a lot of people would be. Kids at that age, they like that. They like a bit of flash. They like a bit of pomp and circumstance. If they can walk onto our campus in Lexington and we can point to this thing and say, this is better than what the Hawks have. This is better than what the Oklahoma City Thunder have, who just won the title, this and that. A kid's going to be like, okay, like that's pretty cool. And then you go on a visit to somewhere else and they're like, no, this isn't the same vibe. Again, this is all making it not only financially viable, but then ultimately the product on the court is going to end up being better, which is great. And then I saw a lot of discourse on social media and stuff when Cal was here and he was demanding a new facility, and they would say things like, well, what are we missing? Like what does this facility have that the team currently needs that they don't have? And it's not even so much about that. It's kind of like all 4-bedroom houses aren't made the same, right? There's a very normal 4-bedroom house, and then there's the 4-bedroom house that I imagine Cal might live in Fayetteville, and it's probably a very different 4-bedroom houses, right? That's the type of thing. It's like maybe Joe Kraft technically checks boxes of things that you need, but it's not nearly to the standard of what you would expect when you hear the University of Kentucky, and what I would expect as a fan or as a coach or whatever when I see the University of Kentucky. And it sounds like Mitch is totally aligned with this, which is great. So I think all in all, this is going to be great. And I think the fans are going to see it ultimately on the court as well.
Sarah Brooks says, where's this being built? That was part of the TBD of all of this. Don't know where it's going to be built, but thinking by Kroger Field, kind of the space around that. Timeline, Mitch Barnhart was talking, said, we don't know until we see how big we can get, how much money we can spend, because the bigger and more expensive, obviously, the longer it's going to take. But loosely speaking, based on the other projects that he's done and has seen across the country, he kind of put it at like it's going to take a year for development, a year for planning, a year and a half to construct and have this thing, in the process of being built. But he said, I don't want it to last any longer than 5 years. So we kind of had a 2-ish to 5-ish year window about when this can be done, which, if we're thinking about when the conversation started with Cal in the summer of 2022, it feels like that was just yesterday, and we would be nearing completion at this point if we had started it then. So it's going to go more quickly. Like once there's a 4 to 6 month process to get this planning stage going and come up with the actual game plan of what we're going to do. When that is finalized, I feel like everything else is going to kind of start moving, and you're going to start seeing, the groundbreaking and all of the other things. And you kind of will start to be able to take these, little milestones as we inch closer to completion, that it will feel a lot go more quickly, and it'll be just a massive recruiting tool for Mark. Hopefully, Mark Pope is here long enough and is thriving in a way that he's going to be able to see the reward of all of this come together. But at minimum, he can start recruiting with it right now and saying, "Hey, look, we're the gold standard. We're doing something that only NBA teams and NFL teams do." So you're going to want to be a part of this. So yeah, awesome stuff coming at some point. We'll see when it actually happens, but it's going to be awesome. Speaking of practice, we are back for fall. It feels like we just were talking about the wrap up of the summer, but we're back for fall practices. Spencer, you've been around the block. You've seen hundreds of these. What is the process right now? You get back from that little mini summer break. classes have started back up. We're at the official starting point of fall practices. When does the preseason practices start? And then when do we get to, the real stuff there in October?
Yeah, it's a good question. The fall is structured a little bit differently than the summer, and it's also structured a little bit differently than in season. Right now, you can have 8 hours a week of what's called CARA, right? So CARA stands for Accountable Athletic Related Activities. So basically CARA, when you hear CARA, you're thinking anything that basically the coaches make them do basketball-wise. Practice, lifting weights, watching film, anything like that goes towards CARA. And they have 8 hours a week that they can spend in the fall right now in the preseason on CARA. So there's no film right now for the most part because you're not really preparing for anybody or whatever. So you have 8 hours a week in the weight room and on the court total. A typical week, you'll probably split out 2.5 to 3 hours in the weight room, 5 hours or so on the court. You'll go probably 4 days a week. You'll go maybe Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or maybe Monday through Thursday and you give them Friday off. But what it is it's really geared towards ramping up towards what you want to do come 42 days out. 42 days out from your first game is when you can start practice, official practice. And that's when the CARA goes from 8 hours to 20 hours. So you can 2.5 times the amount of time you can spend with your guys in the season versus in the fall. So what you do during this period is you tend to ramp up, right? Some coaches give them the first week off so that they can focus on academics. I'm a big fan of that. Let them find their classes, let them focus on starting the semester right. And then week 2, you kind of get them into it. A lot of coaches just say, oh, day 1, we're going to get this thing rolling. There's really no right or wrong answer there. But what'll happen is you just start to ramp up. You do a lot of individual work and you do a lot of like schemes and a lot of like principal foundational stuff early. So you'll do kind of 2-on-0 ball screen coverages. You'll work on like, obviously we run a lot of zoom action and stuff. So you'll do a lot of 3-man stuff on the side with a big and 2 wings, a big, a guard and a wing, and you'll work on some zoom action stuff. Guy in the corner might back cut. One guy comes off of the hanky or the handoff, I should say. Big rolls, right? And then you might have 2 guys passing the ball so that everybody on that drill gets a shot. So you might just do a lot of stuff like that. But what you're doing is you're building principles and you're getting guys comfortable with the zoom action, for instance, and the big handing it off. Which way does he open up? Okay, he spins this way and he rolls and boom, lockstep, he's got the ball. He's just getting used to that stuff. And then as the fall goes on, week 2, week 3, you start to work in some defense, right? Where, okay, now all of a sudden we're defending those actions live. And you're putting in some of your core defensive stuff, what's called shell drill, which is like 5-on-0, 4-on-0, and you're really just practicing on where you want to be as the ball rotates around and stuff. I don't want to bore you guys, but it's a lot of just really foundational stuff where you're just teaching principles. But as time goes on in the fall, you're ramping it up a little bit more. So I say like week 1, you might do 0 minutes of like what's called live work, which is like 5-on-5, 4-on-4, where you're going full speed. Week 2, you might do 10 minutes. Week 3, you might do 25, 30 minutes, right? Where by the end of this kind of fall period, your workouts are almost maybe going to be entirely live and your guys are competing and they're getting after it. And you want to do that for a few reasons. You want them to really get the principles, but then you also don't want to wear them down as the fall goes on. So it's a really critical time. Coaches sometimes mishandle this time. I think Pope and them are so smart. I think they're doing a great job. But it's all building towards that 42-day mark, 42 days before your first regular season game. You can start actual practice, and that's when it's really go time.
And I think we decided that's September 21st or something.
23rd, something in there.
23rd. Yeah, we talked about it. But I think it's fascinating to kind of take all of the intel that we got over the 8 weeks in the summer and seeing, the guys that we really like, guys that we thought were struggling, guys that, showed some flashes, but still kind of in that middle ground. Seeing these first couple of weeks, we've already in week 3 of this or whatever it's been. So, what's the difference? Who has learned from the summer? Who is built upon their stuff? Who's kind of dropped off? Those sorts of things. So I think it's funny how some of the early intel that we've gotten from these early fall practices are the guys that were kind of in iffy territory have been playing really, really well. But you're also getting some constants and at a really crucial position, especially I think we can start with Jalen Lowe and hearing some really good things about him. We heard, he was right there with Otega Owe the entire way throughout the summer, and kind of building upon that, if not better, to start the fall. How crucial is it for us to kind of know exactly what we have in Jalen Lowe? And I'm sure you've heard, something comparable about Jalen kind of being that guy.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's a good point, Jack, because the other thing that you want to kind of start to establish in the summertime and then more so in the fall, and you definitely want to have defined by the time you get to the beginning of games, is like, what's our role right now? I really loved a couple of weeks ago, you guys interviewed Jay Billis, which was an unbelievable interview. I loved listening to Jay. And he talked about how roles can change as the season goes on, as even a game progresses because of foul trouble or whatever. That's incredibly true. But you also want guys to have a real sense of like what your core identity is, right? Am I a guy who just kind of distributes the ball like crazy? Am I just a lockdown defender? Am I a bulldog on the glass and I just rebound like crazy? You want guys to kind of find their fit in their role within the team, because not everybody can be the Otega Oweh, right? And it sounds like last year, right, Jack, in the fall is when it clicked with Otega. And Otega really found that role for
right
himself.
Now, actually. September was when we heard that Otega kind of took off.
That's exactly what we're talking about. That's why this is such a critical time, is because like guys find that role where like maybe one day it just kind of clicks. And if you're a Colin Chandler, you're like, wait, hold on. You're telling me if I just make open shots and I just defend the heck out of the ball, I'm going to play? Okay. Like, let me just go be great at that. And then as the season goes on, if he evolves into more and everything, that's fantastic. But this time right now, you really, really want to lock in on that stuff. So going back to the Jalen Lowe question, the summer was him getting used to being in a new program and being around new guys. And as a point guard, it's almost like being a quarterback where you got to know your receivers, right? You got to know exactly where they like the ball, and you got to know exactly when they like to turn, to cut and stuff. It's the same thing with a point guard. So it's one of the harder positions to kind of get into and kind of get into the flow and stuff. But it sounds like he did an unbelievable job in the summer. And now in the fall, it's his job to really solidify that role of like, who is he? Is he this kind of pass first, really kind of heady, push the ball and just kind of spray it all around? Is he that kind of guy? Is he a guy who becomes a really real threat from three and he starts to hunt that a little bit? Who knows? We'll see. But it sounds like he's really, really hit his stride and he's really starting to build out that role. And then what ends up happening with a guy like Lowe is, just like a quarterback, other guys start to respond to that, right? They start to learn Jalen Lowe and when he passes and when he'll look for his shot and when he likes you to cut. And all of a sudden that starts to sink. And it's a really, really fun time watching guys kind of be a part of that and kind of figure it out. And it sounds like Jalen Lowe has just really, really kind of blossomed as the summer's gone on. And to start the fall, it's been more of the same.
Yeah, I would say, we're talking about the Otegas of the world that really kind of used this time to take off. I will be the first to say I was pretty low on Brandon Garrison coming out of the summer, especially just, not taking that jump that we were kind of hoping for. And not that he was incapable of that, because, again, we hadn't seen this is when Otega became Otega. We still have such a long runway to go until the actual games start that it is not a make or break thing that BG hadn't been that throughout the summer, and he could, wake up tomorrow and have it just finally click for him. So to hear some of the more positive things about BG to start the fall, I think was very, very impressive. Same kind of applies to Jasper Johnson and Cam Williams as well. Both players making shots and doing some really interesting, fun things and kind of showing off their shot making prowess and kind of why they were such hot commodities and such crucial additions. This past cycle for Mark Pope. So to hear those positive rumblings for those three players especially, I think is absolutely huge. And I think the bigger point of all of that is we were already feeling so good about the Trent Noahs of the world. And, obviously Otega is Otega and Mo Diabate, Denzel Aberdeen kind of being as advertised. You feel already so good about those guys. And then the guys that you had question marks about, they're starting to kind of figure things out. Then you go, okay, well, now we're talking 12 playable guys who are going to, I don't think the rotation's going to be 12, but 12 guys are going to play on any given night. And that's a pretty impressive luxury for Mark Pope in year two.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, the intel that I've heard from Cam and Jasper, like we can start with them specifically, has been that they are just making tough shots right now. And what you want, especially for like an offense like what we run with Pope, is like, I don't know, this is what we called it, but we had 3 different coverages for guys defensively, right? We had Curry, Wade, and Rondo. All right. So if we're defending a guy and we're like, hey, when you're guarding him, it's Curry coverage. That means you have to be there on the catch. If he's 5-6 feet behind the line, I don't care. You got to be there on the catch. Like, imagine how you would guard Kobe Bryant, right? That's a Curry coverage. A Wade coverage is more like maybe how you would have guarded Ortega last year, where it's like, we know he's like, think Dwayne Wade. We know he's capable of hitting it, but maybe we're a little bit more worried about him putting the ball on the floor and getting passes. So we want to kind of respect it, but we kind of want to stunt at him and everything. But then we also really, our main thing is keep him out of the paint. And then we have Rondo coverage, which is like, we're okay if he shoots it. You know what I mean? I think, like, no disrespect, I think like Severe Wheeler might have been a Rondo coverage for us, you know, to kind of give you a visual. I think Cam and Jasper being Curry coverage guys is going to be massive for this team, because we need to be able to put multiple guys on the court at a time who the defense just has to sell out for. Because what that's going to do, that's going to open everything else up for a guy like BG or for a guy like Ortega or Jalen Lowe. So we need as many Curry coverage guys as we can get. And it sounds like Jasper and Cam are really starting to turn into that, where even their own teammates kind of know if Jasper's got a little bit too much room, they're like, shoot, like that's a make. You know, you kind of have that attitude a little bit now, which is fun. That's really, really good for the offense. For BG, we talked about it a couple shows ago where I said BG might be a guy who gets better as the principles and stuff start to kind of come together a little bit more, because you're running sets and you're running those with purpose. And you say, BG, you're rolling to the basket the moment you catch it up over your right shoulder, put it high atop the square, right? Because then a guy like JQ can't come and block it. And so when a guy is like, has that rhythm about him and he kind of knows what's expected and he knows what to do every time, all of a sudden he gets better and better. So I expect BG to get better as the fall progresses and even into season practice early on, because he's going to become more and more comfortable with some of that stuff and where exactly Jalen Lowe is going to put the ball on the bounce and stuff. So it's really, really great. And you're right. I don't think we'll go 12 deep, but to have 12 guys that you say, hey, if we have to put him on the court, I'll be okay with it. That's a really, really good feeling, especially coming off of a year where injuries just tanked us. And it seems like, I'm going to knock on wood when I say this, it seems like since, 2014 or so, we've had the injury bug bite us almost every year. So knowing that that's been the case with Kentucky, it's great to just hedge our bets. And we just have an ultra talented roster that goes really deep. And guys are, again, back to our point earlier, starting to find their role, which is fun.
The question, the man of the hour, the ultimate question mark that we've been waiting for him to, row over from Croatia, however long that's been. He finally made it. Our big Croatian sensation. He finally made it. The rowing is over. He is in Lexington. He's practicing with the team. The early feedback, positive. I think, the things that you would expect for a player is behind, quote unquote. Again, we had Alvin Brooks III on last week. He talked about how you wouldn't, socially hanging out with his teammates off the floor, they're doing the Kentucky trip, going and zip lining and doing all the, goofing off, eating s'mores together. They're, you wouldn't know that he was 8 weeks behind in that regard, but showing some early signs in practice that this is a guy that has missed some of the foundational stuff and it's going to be a process with him, but showing enough flashes there, consistent flashes, not just like, whoa, where did that come from? But like, yeah, the vision is very obvious here, and this is kind of something that we should come to expect this season. Very positive, all things considered. The early feedback on Yelovich. Are your expectations still the same? What are you kind of hoping for with Yelovich after the first 2-ish weeks that he's been on the floor?
Yeah, I like Yelovich a lot because he gives you something that we don't have anywhere else in the front court, which is a guy who can stretch the floor. I think he's going to be able to stretch the floor relatively consistently, which is great. He's going to be a threat. I think he's going to be closer to a Curry coverage than a Wade coverage, which is kind of what
I like that.
I think that just because I think he's really skilled, and I think European guys as well, they know how to play the game the right way. They're big in like they have a really good rhythm to the way that they play. So as he gets more comfortable with the offense, he's going to know what his spots are. He's going to know like, hey, when we run this and there's the handoff and they skip it to the side, that's my time to shine. Like I'm going to pop it every time. I think he's a guy who's capable of doing that, which is really fun. He's got size. He can pass. Watching a lot of his clips from like his EuroLeague stuff, he runs the floor really hard. Like he sprints the floor. So also kind of going back to like talking about being deeper than everybody, one advantage of being deeper than everybody is you just wear them down. So what I look for this year is how many times coming out of the under 8 timeout in the second half are we just going to break someone's back in that 8 minute to 4 minute stretch of the second half, because they're just so tired. They're just worn down. And that 7-point lead on the road at Ole Miss or whatever turns into a 16-point lead because we go on a 10-1 run, and having a guy like Yelovich and BG and stuff who run the floor really, really hard, all you're going to do is just wear down those bigs as the game goes on. He does that really well. He can pass the ball great. This is a good passing front court. I think Mo Diabate is a good passer. I think JQ is going to be a good passer as well. We know BG can make some really good passes and stuff, and he's been here for a year, so he knows some of the reads. So all the positive stuff about Yelovich, I'm not surprised, but I am encouraged just hearing and knowing how well he's integrating into everything. He's going to be great. He's going to be great for us.
Unfortunately, got the good old American basketball welcome, but thanks to one Colin Chandler. Mark Pope posted it on Twitter, and I thought that was pretty funny that Colin kind of had some stuff to him. Looked really, really good in that clip that Pope shared. Did kind of just building upon the good stuff that we saw, again, heard this past summer, but especially the stuff that we saw with our own two eyes as the year progressed, going into March Madness. Especially his confidence was just on a different planet, and you're really starting to see a lot of that stuff come together, and that's just kind of the norm. That's the expectation with him. So love that. Unfortunately, it came to the detriment of one Andrea Yelovich getting the poster.
I mean, what are we doing? You guys been on campus for 2 weeks, and we're already putting them on blast. A Big Blue Nation. I mean, it's really fun. That was a great move by Chandler. I liked the sentiment. I think the tweet was talking about, hey, playing off 2, and sometimes you got to play off 1 or whatever. I thought it kind of mimicked the dunk that Colin had last year in the blue-white game, and I think he got. Did he get BG on that one?
He did get BG on that one. Yeah,
BG on that one. So yeah, maybe he's just baptizing new big men as they come into the program. That was a great clip, and I like that Yelovich went for the block. I like that. Nothing easy, but Colin got the best of him. But I hope that Yelovich got him back at some point in practice.
I do as well. We kind of touched on it, but Jaden Quaintance made some news today, and I don't think it was anybody's fault. I don't think, even John Rothstein, who put the tweet out, I don't think he was trying to break any news or kind of set an expectation that, was any different. Like, I don't think there was an expectation. The tweet was that he has not been cleared for non-contact practice. I don't think there was an expectation that he was going to be cleared to do anything, live-ish anytime soon. So, talking to some people that I know, that wasn't necessarily even something that they were, inching toward, or like there was a setback or anything to suggest like it being a news update. So, I just would caution for the fan base to, just reel it in, relax. Things are going exactly as planned with Jaden Quaintance, if not better. In fact, a little birdie in the room sent me this, and I just want to kind of get your take on this.
Yeah, doing some plyo box work. I think Jack, he posted something similar to this, maybe on his Instagram this summer. This looks great. He's doing great. Yeah. Like, this stuff is very, very normal at this stage, because you want to just test that knee against impact as much as you can. And I'm not a doctor. Please don't act, please nobody believe that I'm a doctor, but I've been around a lot of guys who have had, ACL tears and stuff like this. This is all super normal stuff. You really want to like solidify that knee as much as you can. You want to test it and make sure there's no discomfort. That's the biggest thing. Like, they're looking for discomfort. Like, when you do this, do you feel anything? Almost like, is there something stuck between your teeth in there? Like, are you feeling like there's like a little something going on? I think that's kind of what they look for. Again, I'm not a doctor, but that's all super normal. I wouldn't expect him to be on the court doing non-contact stuff. Non-contact stuff, I think you're only maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks away tops from being contact stuff, would be my guess. Again, I'm not a doctor, so please, like, this is just a guess. Please don't go crazy with anything. But When he gets cleared for non-contact stuff, I would say that signals that we're maybe 3 to 4 weeks away from maybe him being cleared for contact stuff. So if he was cleared for non-contact at this point, I think we'd be way ahead of schedule. So no, I don't think that this was breaking news. I totally agree with you. I wouldn't expect him to be cleared for that at this point, but that video looks great. I noticed one thing. He posted a video in the fall. I know we're going to get to this in a minute. But he posted a similar video in the fall, and I was like, he looks good. He looks big. Like he looks like he's kind of put on some weight and stuff, and he looks really comfortable the way he's moving and everything. And as you've reported, Jack, it sounds like he's been really serious about his recovery. He's put a lot of time and energy and dedication into it, which is what you want to see from a guy who expects to hopefully be a lottery pick in next summer's draft.
Yeah, it's you talk to people about him and the progress he's making, and it's almost like a shut up, don't say anything. Like things are going very, very well. It's ahead of schedule, not too far ahead of schedule where they're like, whoa, we got to kind of reel it in. We're being a little reckless at this point, but also not taking it so gingerly and so slowly where you're like, man, we're not meeting our benchmarks. If we're trying to get him somewhat early in the season, I just don't know how it's going to happen. We're right on schedule for even an optimistic outlook. Again, I've said it on the show. I've said it on KS Board. I think the absolute backstop of all of this is the start of SEC play in January. I think that is like they're playing it safe. Hey, if we don't want to rush this thing, if we want to be 10,000% certain that we're good to go, let's just play it, or start of SEC play. And if you are a Kentucky fan, I would have that in my mind and say he's going to play game one of SEC play in January. And then when he plays, December 8th, I don't have the schedule in front of me, whatever that is, you go, whoa, here comes JQ. Have that kind of mindset. Don't sit there and count down the days to the season opener or the exhibition games or whatever. And then when he doesn't play in that, go, what the hell? I thought he was supposed to play. Just be excited that we're going to see a full SEC schedule with him, barring any setbacks. We should be as currently, built and progressing. We should get a full SEC schedule and a full postseason with Jaden Quaintance, and that's something to be very excited about. And then we'll see what happens at the non-conference, but I would not rule it out if I were you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's a great opportunity for BG, great opportunity for maybe we'll see Yelovich at the 5. I think that there have been some reports of some small ball 5 out of Diabate, which I don't know if I'm a huge fan, but I mean, who knows? Like Pope's a lot smarter than I am. A great opportunity for some of those. Even Reese Potter might get tossed in there from time to time. Great opportunity for those guys to get a lot of experience, build a lot of confidence. And then when JQ comes in, all of a sudden you're adding a lottery pick at some point mid-season. And then you look at that team in March and you're like, holy cow, that's scary, because you've got a bunch of dudes that you just know you can rely on. So yeah, I totally agree. Aim for that. Who is it? Alabama on the road. That'd be a heck of a way to start. If he goes in there like Nerlens Noel did on Ole Miss and he just gets like 7-8 blocks on the road at Alabama, we get a win. And if he comes in earlier than that, that's gravy. Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I think this comment from FT is exactly right. Don't set any unrealistic, just hyperbolic, expectations of him, being ready for the Louisville game. And I know like the storylines are, we got to get JQ for that. No, we don't. It'll be fine.
We're going to be Louisville either way. Like, come on. Like
we're deep. Matter. We'll be fine. It'll be a nice added bonus. Don't expect it, but if it happens, then go, well, we're going to kick some ass today. Just when it happens, be very, very excited, because Jaden is a very, very good player, and we're only going to see him for a couple of months before he becomes a top 5 pick in the NBA, and it's going to be a lot of fun because he's going to be a future max contract player in the NBA, and that's something Mark Pope will very, very much be celebrating when the time comes. I will also be celebrating these new updated heights and weights compared to when these players signed. Where they were last season, when it's the first run is kind of the unofficial heights and weights that you get with the program. What the last school had them listed at, what the high school that they came from had them listed at. Andrea Yelovich, that's just kind of like whatever the, Sportico or whatever kind of service that you use for that to get his heights and weights. We get the official updates from UK Athletics, and JQ, definitely the biggest headline there. If I were to tell you that Jaden Quaintance grew 2 inches and gained 40 pounds this summer, would you believe me, Spencer?
I wouldn't believe you. No, I would not. I would not believe you. No, that is an absurd amount of weight to gain in a short amount of time, but it's super encouraging. I mean, if he's real, again, I kind of alluded to it a minute ago where I looked at some of those videos. I was like, he looks like he's really put on some weight. He looks really good. That kind of checks out if he's like in that 245, 250, 255 range. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. It's having his official. I'm pulling up for everybody right now, but his new official height is listed at 6'10" and a half, and his new weight is 255. So I think that's something that we could be working with. We'll run through and see if anything jumps out at you or anything stands out. So we have Otega Owe, was 6'4", is 6'4", was 215. Is now 220, gained 5 pounds over the summer. Aberdeen, 6'5", 190 to 195, so another 5-pounder. We're starting to see a theme here with a lot of these guys. Jasper Johnson grew an inch, and he's also 180 now. Cam Williams, still 6'8", but is now 205, up 15 pounds, which that was kind of one of the talking points with him over the summer, needing a little bit of some oomph to him and kind of struggling with toughness and physicality. So that's definitely a positive that he's up 15 from there. Yelovich, 6'11", 225. Colin Chandler, no change, up 3 pounds. Trent Noah, exactly the same from last go round, 6'5", 220. Brennan Garrison, down 5 pounds. Is that an interesting update for you? 250 to 245, but still 6'10".
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think some guys do better a little bit lighter weight. I think I didn't notice anything about Brandon last year about him being a little bit slow-footed or something like that. But I can say everything in this time, because everything that they're doing is so controlled, the food that they're eating and stuff like that. Like they're working out like crazy. They're getting weighed almost every day, probably. Everything is intentional. So if he lost 5 pounds, it's because the staff wanted him to lose 5 pounds, and that's great. So it's a good sign. My guess is that they want him to be a little bit lighter on his feet. They want him to be a little bit more mobile, maybe a little bit quicker to kind of jump up and try to get a block. 5 pounds can make a big difference. So it doesn't surprise me necessarily, but I also maybe wasn't expecting it, but it's good to see.
Jalen Lowe down 18 pounds, down from 188 to 170. That one's interesting to me. What do you think of that one?
It tells me he had some bad weight. 18 pounds is a ton. I don't know if you could lose 18 pounds of muscle in a summer. I think you can lose 18 pounds of bad weight working out as much as they are and stuff, really leaning up. It tells me that he probably got to campus with some bad weight. It's interesting with transfers, and I don't know how Kentucky does it. It's hard to say when that weight is from, if they actually weighed them on day one, or I think maybe you made a point a minute ago where like maybe it came from their prior team or something like that. But 18 pounds tells me Jalen Lowe kind of maybe at one point or another had some bad weight. Staffs really worked for them. Maybe that's what's led to some of his success as well. But 170 is a little bit light, a little bit lighter than I would have thought at that position, but they know what they're doing.
We got Braden Hawthorne. He is up 15 pounds. That is an absolute must. He was definitely up there among, but up there with Cam Williams probably in terms of, Jasper Johnson as well. Guys that just got to add some weight, got to, hit the weight room hard, and kind of the strength and conditioning staff really needs to work with them. So that's a massive, massive development if you ask me. Mo Diabate up 5 pounds, 6'7", 220 for him. Malachi, officially in the 7-footer club. It's funny with like the Kevin Durant's and stuff of the world, you kind of avoid the 7-footer club, but I think we're welcoming that with Malachi officially 7 foot, 250 pounds. That's plus 20 pounds from what he was listed at before. I think that's definitely an interesting takeaway. And then Reese Potter still 7'1", up 15 pounds to 230. So he's getting, girthy. And then we got the walk-ons, Walker Horn, baby, plus 5 pounds. There you go. And then Zach Tao, Mr. Consistent, 6'5", 220, 220. And that wraps us up. So anything interesting there with Malachi?
Yeah, he's a big dude, and I love it. I love it. He, you want a guy like Malachi to be an anchor. You want him to kind of like almost have his own orbit, because he's this big kind of mass in the middle that can clean up the glass and block shots and finish around the rim and stuff. And having a guy like that makes a big difference. I mean, not in the way that they play, but think about how big Amari was and how much space he would eat. He would just eat space in the lane defensively. I mean, and sometimes offensively on the glass and stuff. So now you're adding another inch or two and a bit of extra poundage to that. And all of a sudden you've got Malachi. So it's really cool. It's good to see. I like having a guy like that on the roster. I like having versatility and kind of different sizes at different places. So you have Brandon Garrison, who lost a little bit of weight, and then you got Malachi, who's really beefing up, and he's going to kind of be an anchor down there. So that's really good. I think it's interesting that Jaden Quaintance is the only one that got a half an inch, but he can't be the only one that was in between 1 inch and another inch. I'm just fascinated as to why he's the only one that got the 0.5 on top of his thing. And then the 255, I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. My guess is that he did not show up to campus at 2:15. I think that's what they said, right? 2:15. I saw a 24/7 article from going into his freshman year where they listed him at 2:30. I saw an Arizona State article like after a game where they listed him at 2:25. I don't know what the roster listed him at Arizona State, but my guess is that maybe he didn't come to campus at 2:15. Maybe that was somewhat outdated, but the fact that he's 2:55 now is monster.
I think Eddie Congress brings up a good point. Jalen, it makes sense for Jalen's number to be, 188 at Pitt. Then he comes, loses the weight over the court. Maybe that was his beginning of last year at Pitt. Kind of starts the process of losing it, gets to, 164 at the combine, and then gains another, 6 pounds of good weight over the course of the summer. I think the math kind of on that makes a lot of sense. And you could be kind of getting that with a lot of these guys. The only way it makes sense for Jaden is to, that to be aligning with what, maybe the beginning of last year, entering his freshman year versus where he is right now. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense. But hey, I'm impressed with the new heights and new weights for all these guys. This is a very beefy team. Not anybody that's like, whoa, we got to really work on that. I think the guys that need to get their bodies taken care of are doing that. I think Trent Noah's at a good number, kind of losing the baby fat, looking good. Like all these guys, I think it is a pretty good list, and hopefully we continue to build upon that once we get to September. Or into September and into the preseason, there early October. So we'll start wrapping this thing up. There's a couple big notes with national scheduling. Maybe that's wrapping up for Kentucky side of things, but some big national games that were kind of put on the docket, put on the schedule. What do you think of some of those? Yeah, I mean, huge. I mean, I think what was it? It was Arkansas and Houston announced a game where they're going to play each other, I believe, up in New York. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. December 20th is going to be one of the best days in regular season college basketball history because you've got Auburn against Purdue. You've got Houston, Arkansas is that day, Kentucky, St. John's, I think UNC, Ohio State, Duke against Texas Tech. Like you've got all of these crazy games just back to back to back on December 20th. What I love about college basketball is more and more they are adopting the idea of like, let's play each other. Like, screw it. You watched Alabama 2 years ago play one of the hardest non-conference schedules I had seen up to that point. They kind of got their teeth kicked in a little bit at times, but they get into the tournament as I think they were a 4 seed, and then they rip off a run to the Final Four. And it's like, oh, holy cow. Like that actually paid off for them. And so then you saw more and more teams do it last year. And now this year you see it be really stacked. What's going to be important this fall and like into the winter in the non-conference is that the SEC does what it's supposed to do and does a really, really good job of solidifying their status as the top dog. Like we are still the best league. We are still expecting to get 11, 12 teams in the NCAA tournament. I don't think we can do 14 again, but 11, 12 is pretty good. So if Auburn can go and beat Purdue, if Kentucky can beat St. John's, if you can get some wins like that, it goes a really, really long way for league play. Sean Smith's not here, but like he always talks about stacking quad one wins. Those quad one wins come as a result of us winning some of these battles in the non-conference. So it's going to be more important than ever for the league to kind of solidify that reputation early on, but it's going to be a great year. I'm really excited that teams have adopted this more and more of like, let's get out there. Like, let's get out there and try to play some folks. We are going to maybe next week. We were working on a guest potentially for next week, but at some point over the next week or two, we're going to be unveiling our official SEC power rank preseason power rankings and kind of just seeing where, not going to be the absolute historic juggernaut that it was last season, but the SEC, again, going to be very strong. A lot of turnover with some new key additions and fun things. So maybe a preview for that before we wrap this thing up. Where does Kentucky finish in the SEC before we give our full list over the next week or two?
I mean, come on. I mean, we're going to finish first. I'm fairly confident. I mean, I wouldn't be the homer that I am if I didn't believe that. I think that the top of the conference is going to be really good. I really like some of the rosters. I don't like a couple of the rosters as much as some other people do. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll maybe shed some light on that as we get into it a week or two from now. But Kentucky's going to finish first. We're going to hang another SEC championship banner.
I feel like we are in the process of being just generally undervalued, underrated at this point. Like I feel like we upgraded the roster, we got deeper, and people still kind of view us on the same level as last year's group, kind of talking about us in the same way. And I think people are going to be proven wrong very, very quickly. And I'm excited that we're a month away from Big Blue Madness. Can you believe that? Like, I can't believe you just look at the calendar, September 9th. I mean, we're, weekend of October 12th is Big Blue Madness. So we are 1 month away from the tip off to year 2 of Mark Pope. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's coming up quick. I'm pumped. I feel like Big Blue Madness last year had a jolt of energy that it hadn't had in a few years. I think it's only going to be bigger this year. And then you got Kenny Brooks, who's going into year 2 as well. He's gonna be bigger. I'm not sure if he's going to do the Matthew Mitchell, song and dance routine or anything, but it's going to be really, really cool watching those two head coaches go into their second year. Big Blue Nation fired up about both of them in the direction of both programs. We'll have recruits there. We'll be on the verge at that point of playing Purdue and Georgetown. Those two will just be right around the corner from Big Blue Madness. The electricity around both programs at the time, I think, is going to be at an all-time high, which is going to be fun. Anything
that we need to do more differently, whatever, compared to Big Blue Madness last year? Obviously it was just kind of a unique thing. You get, Rick Pitino. It's such a kind of a once in a lifetime kind of feeling night. It's very similar to the initial, introductory press conference where you're like, I don't know if I'll ever feel this way again. So you're not going to be able to recreate that magic, obviously, but is there anything that they could, the glass floor, whatever, is there anything that we can take from last year's that we want to keep, we want to, bring back, or anything that you want to change that you need to see this year for Big Blue Madness?
It's interesting. I liked the glass floor, and Pope kind of teased us a little bit with like, maybe it'll be our permanent floor. And then I feel like nothing ever got said about that again. So I'm putting that back out in the universe because I thought it was cool. Ultimately Big Blue Madness is a recruiting event. And I think people know that that's kind of what it's turned into a little bit. So you've really got to lean into the pomp and circumstance of history, and we're Kentucky. We're number one. There's nobody that does it like us. And so that's got to be a big part of it. What I would like to see personally is us be a little bit more serious, like in the scrimmage, or like give the fans like a real taste of these guys competing, even if it's just 3-on-3 work or something like that, a little bit more than what we did last year, especially if blue and white's going to continue to be like a paid ticketed event. Then give the fans that camp out for Big Blue Madness or whatever, give them a real taste of what this team can do. Not just, it kind of turned into an NBA All-Star game there for several years. And it was kind of like, what's the point? Give them a taste of the real thing, of like the identity of this team. I'd love to see Mo Diabate take a charge or something like that. I'd love to see that type of a thing. And I think the fans would really go mental over that stuff. So that's what I'd like to see, but also keep the pomp and circumstance of the history and the tradition and all that for the recruits.
We're going tradition. I'm saying bring back the camp out. It's time. We need to have the camp out.
Are we not doing that anymore? Are we done with that?
Well, every year there's been some type of excuse. It's, there's too much construction going around campus. The way they renovated it, there's not the same, green space to where we can put tents up and it becomes kind of a safety thing. Figure it out. Put it somewhere else. We got to have the nostalgia of those old-fashioned, beautiful tent, actual real tents of people sleeping in those tents overnight. Like, we got to get that back again. I know we're not going to get the Nerlens Noel but we're not going to get the pickup games and all the stuff because of the actual construction, but you can still turn it into a pretty cool thing. And I think that would be such a Mark Popey, he would be Mr. Campout. He would spend the night in a tent. He would be the one coach to actually spend the night in a tent. I don't. I feel like we got to do that. And if you're listening, UK, let's make that happen.
I agree. And I think that, you don't need a pickup game or whatever, but I think there's really cool. Set up a video game tournament. All those guys play Fortnite or 2K or Madden or whatever. Set up a video game tournament and let like some 19-year-old freshman get to play Otega Owe in a game of Madden and talk trash to him. It's like, that's fun. Like, that's what makes the camp out cool. I don't think I really knew or remembered that we did away with that the last few years. You got to bring that back. There's only so many things that like are super, super cool and let fans just really get up close with the guys. And that's one of them. So bring that back for sure.
Hopefully we see a little bit more of that. We're wrapping up right now, right at an hour. Spencer, this was an absolute blast. Just getting some breaking news, kind of digging into some of the, nuggets over the early stages of the fall. So I had an absolute blast, man, and looking forward to keep doing this. But we're going to do the SEC Power Rankings here in the very near future. Have some awesome guests coming up that we're very excited to, continue to keep that moving forward with you guys. So Spencer, appreciate you, man, and we do this every time. Do you want to tell fans how to find your work, build up that social media clout?
Yeah, I'm at I'm at Spencer_Smith 10 if you want to go follow me and read a bunch of boring tweets. I want to give a quick shout out just real quick before we go. I want to give a shout out to Coach Greg Mason, who maybe you're familiar, maybe you're not. He was the head coach for I think 26 years at Center College in Danville. Danville is where my mom grew up and everything. So in Center College, lightly recruited me for like a half a minute when I was in high school until they decided I probably wasn't good enough, which is fair. But was there for 26 years. He won close to 500 games. He announced this past week that he's retiring and walking away from basketball. Ran the program the right way, did an unbelievable job at Center College, raised a lot of really, really great basketball players, but then also young men. So I want to give a shout out to him because he built a really, really great program in the state of Kentucky. He got to coach against Cal and the Cats in Rupp a few years ago. Got their tails kicked in, but what do you expect? But congratulations to him on an incredible career. I think all the small schools in Kentucky just do an unbelievable job as far as basketball and talent and all that go. And Greg Mason was a really, really good one, and he's walking away. So congrats to him on a great career.
I'm not sure if you know this, but Greg Mason is a Sources Say listener because he came up to me at the Shelbyville shootout, I think, at Collins High School 3 summers ago, and he came up and he was like, I listen to every single one of your shows. So Coach, thank you. And I hope that you got to hear that because that wasn't planned. That was totally on Spencer. So I hope that you got to enjoy that because that was a hell of a run for you. And we're wishing you the best in your next post coaching career. Proud of you. Appreciate everything that you've done. Appreciate all these listeners. It was an awesome show, and we'll be back next time for the Jam Packed Sources Say podcast. We will see you then.